Okay, presenters, are we feeling ready? Should we kick things off? At least the introductions and getting to know who's in the room.
Let's do it.
That'll give the folks coming in a little bit later a bit of a chance. Okay. Well, hello, welcome everybody. So glad that you could join us. Just want to make sure you're in the right session, that you've chosen to join Collaborating with Government on Social Procurement. That's what we're chatting about here today. And we have Professor Joni Avram from Ambrose as our co-host today, helping us out. And we go until 12:10, just so you know when the session ends. I'll tell you who I am, and then our two presenters. They'll each do a short presentation, and then we'll invite lots of questions and dialogue from you folks here today. So my name is Courtney Moe, and I am a public policy advocate. And I worked for a local charity in Calgary now for 10 years called Momentum. And we provide support and training for entrepreneurship, social enterprise development, and supporting people with barriers to employment to achieve a rewarding career in the trades or the tech sectors. And we've been working with government for many years now, trying to improve social impact through the purchasing decisions of government. And so I've enjoyed collaborating with Sarah and Kris on this policy file for quite some time now. And I've even come to find procurement, the world of procurement, interesting, which I never thought I would. And that's thanks to the leadership of these two and their rebel ways. So I'm excited to introduce them both to you. So first presentation and first speaker is Sarah Aspinall from the City of Calgary. She's the Director of Supply Management, and her team is responsible for procurement and warehousing activities for all of the city services. She works hard to strengthen relations between industry associations, community groups, employees, unions, and colleagues across the city, which I can absolutely attest to. She's incredible at that. She's a passionate advocate for modern government, and that includes supporting and understanding community benefits. And she is the leader of the benefit-driven procurement pilot project at the City of Calgary right now, also known as social procurement. And that's about delivering increased value from every dollar invested by the city. She's worked with the city since 2014, and she's got tons of incredible credentials, but one of my favorites is this master's in municipal leadership from the Schulich School of Business, supplemented by the Six Sigma Black Belt certification. So we're dealing with somebody with a black belt here today, folks. You might notice that she was born and raised in the UK and has a passion for trains and her 3 adorable dogs. So that's Sarah in a nutshell. And then following Sarah, we have Kris Ruiter from the Government of Canada. He is Acting Chief Stakeholder Engagement from the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises in the Western region of Canada for Public Service and Procurement Canada. So in a nutshell, that means he helps businesses in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut to navigate the federal procurement processes. And Kris's education background, according to LinkedIn, he comes from Bishop's University, where it appears to me that he majored in basketball and golf, among other things like business. And never shy to crack a joke. I'm happy to turn it on to you for today, Kris, because even Kris can make conversations like supply chains fun and funny. So thanks for always making light of what is sometimes a serious topic. Okay, so those are our two presenters for today, Sarah and Kris. And we're curious about who's in the room here with us today. So we wanted to launch a little poll around, first just asking what sector you're from. So if you can identify if you're from academia, if you're a student, perhaps you're a small business owner, if you can choose one of the sectors represented there, that would be helpful to us to know who we're chatting with today and what kind of questions we might get. It also helps our presenters know what parts of their presentation might be more helpful to focus on. So just give one more second there. Looks like we have lots of students, which is amazing. Okay. 10 more seconds. If you've had any trouble seeing the poll and just want to put it in the chat, you can also do that for me as well, if there's anything tricky. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can all see the results, but I'll just read them out just in case. So we have 4% from academia, 56%, which is our largest population, who are students. No one from the corporate sector yet, but maybe they're tuning in late. 22% from small business. Nobody from religious or faith community. 4% from government and 15% from the nonprofit sector on the call today. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are going to turn the mic now over to our first speaker, Sarah. So I'm going to unmute you, Sarah, if you can't unmute yourself. Hopefully you can.
I think I've just managed it.
Okay, well done. And I'll pull up your presentation here for you. Just let me know where you want things to go in the presentation.
Okay. And I'm just going to turn my video off because it seems to be sticking a little bit on my side. So, okay, perfect. Courtney, thank you so much for that introduction. It's nice to share a little bit more about ourselves so that people know who's in the room. So pretty fun. Thank you. So I'm Sarah Aspinall. I'm the executive sponsor for the benefit-driven procurement pilot project to the City of Calgary, along with my regular duties running the supply group at the city. So let's just pop over onto the next slide, Courtney, if we could.
We're there.
Wonderful. So just to let everybody know, I've only got 3 slides, and I'm going to go pretty quickly because I think the open dialogue and the Q&A is going to be far more interesting. So of the 3 slides, the first one is the journey so far at the city. The second one I'll go through is the challenges and opportunity, and the third one is just a very quick resource on how to do business. So the journey. What you see in front of you is a work plan that we put together following a notice of motion that was brought to City Council in 2018. So in 2018, several councillors penned a notice of motion to say that, you know, the City of Calgary should look at getting more investment and more value out of the dollars that we spend. And we should focus on social procurement and look to develop a policy. So in December of 2018, we went back to council with a 3-year work plan, which is what you see in front of you, with a small budget that we asked for as well, and basically kicked it off at that point. Through 2019, we worked on identifying pilots, creating an advisory task force, which Courtney is actually a member of. And it's great to have you on that, as well as all our other community representatives and Calgary colleagues. We have been working through some initial pilots this year, so we have started to do some procurements with what we're calling a benefit-driven procurement questionnaire attached to them. And really the focus of 2020 was really to have much broader engagement and really to start pushing many more pilot procurements out the door and starting to monitor and measure. The pandemic has been an interesting twist for us because we had major plans to do a lot of outreach engagement with small, medium social enterprises, with small business, and really start generating that interest in the program that we have. But it was kind of sidetracked with the pandemic, so we're having to rethink that and work out some new channels to get the outreach there. Monitoring, measuring, we have started to do quite a lot of work, and we're working with BiSocial on basically the measurement system that we will have to determine whether or not we're actually achieving the outcomes that we set out at the beginning. So that is pretty much where we are today. Where we're going, though, is like I was mentioning there about the measurement. We need to measure. We need to do assessments of the pilots that we will have had out in the marketplace. We also need to report those learnings and such back to council in Q1 of 2021. And dependent on the feedback at that point, that will determine kind of the next step, which we believe will be drafting the policy. So drafting a policy that then will take this pilot project into implementation into 2021. So that's the journey. And I'll just move next to the next slide now on the challenges and opportunities. So thanks, Courtney. So it's been interesting, and challenges and opportunities continue to emerge as we move through this pilot project. So we're into year 2, and I won't go through all of the things that are on the slide here, but I'll pick on a couple of the bigger pieces. So in the challenges, the evaluation weighting for the benefit-driven procurement questionnaire has created a lot of, I'm not going to say tension, but many different perspectives on how much the weighting for the benefit-driven element of a procurement should have. So we've got some folks that say it should be everything, or almost like much more than, say, quality or cost or delivery. And then we've got other people on the other side of the scale that says, this is great, but, you know, I really, you know, would like to prioritize quality, cost, etc. So we're working through attempting to find kind of what feels right for that at least a minimum evaluation weighting when we apply the BDP questionnaire to our procurements. The other challenge that I'd also like to highlight is the decentralized small dollar spend at the city. So at the City of Calgary, we have 15,000 employees, and each of those employees at times has the opportunity to make a procurement, whether it would be with a credit card or their influence and such. So when we have such decentralized small spend, it's actually quite difficult to then drive through an initiative that looks at prioritizing the social return on investment and this benefit-driven piece. So it is posing a little bit of a challenge there. The final one on the challenges I would like to point out is this perception of extra red tape, that it may cost more to bid, that there's a steep learning curve for new vendors and such. So we are working on doing some training, getting some training material together so that we can kind of prepare people to be involved and to respond to these questionnaires in advance of it landing as part of a procurement package. Hopefully kind of dispelling the perception there that it is, you know, going to cost more. On the opportunities side, though, you know, given the situation that we're in Calgary right now with the economy, this program creates a tremendous opportunity to build economic, social resilience, and diversity in our supply chain. So it's a good time to be doing this work. It's needed here in Calgary. And, you know, from a taxpayer's perspective, let's get that additional value from these procurements. Rather than just building a bridge or a road or buying a service, let's do more with those dollars. And I think the bottom line for me today is that, you know, it's just the right thing to be doing as a municipal government. We absolutely have a role here, and I'm super excited that we're doing this work at the City of Calgary. The next slide, just progress to the next one here. Thank you, Courtney. This one really is just a resource for the folks here. I'm not going to spend any time on it, but it's just a little bit of an infographic of how to do business with the city. And if in any doubt or you have any questions whatsoever, you can also pick up the phone, call 311, and you will get directed all the way through to folks in my department, and we can have conversations and answer your questions directly through that channel. So that pretty much wraps up my quick presentation there, Courtney. Thanks for the opportunity to share that with you and the panel today.
Thank you, Sarah. That's really helpful. We're going to open up for full, Q&A with the whole group. But I just wanted to ask you one quick question after your presentation. If we could take it back one step, and if you could just describe to our audience today how social procurement is different than procurement from before. What does it look like? Oh, sorry, you're muted, Sarah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thanks.
Great. So what does it look like different? How different is it? So it's really the way that we're looking at implementing it at the city is it's a complementary evaluation criteria that we've added to a procurement process. So in traditional terms, you would buy something, you would buy it on the basis of quality, of cost, of when it can get delivered, and perhaps the qualifications of that vendor, their competence, their references. What we have and how we've approached it at the city is that we've said, you know what, all of those evaluation criteria for selecting the highest ranked proponent are still important, but we have an opportunity to add another criteria to it, which is also from a business perspective, what are you doing with as it relates to community benefit? What does your supply chain look like? How diverse is it? Are you employing, from underrepresented groups, etc.? So what we've basically done is added an additional element to that evaluation criteria to say, basically, if everything else is the same, the quality, the cost, everything else is the same, that community benefit should actually raise that vendor up and above into the highest ranked position. So that's how we're doing it at the City of Calgary.
Awesome, thank you. That's really helpful. Okay, and we're going to turn it over to Kris in just 1 second, but I want to be respectful in case somebody else has a burning question like I just had. And if you do, you could put it in the chat or you could raise your hand. But otherwise, you could hold it until after Kris's presentation. But by all means, if you need to know something right now, if we cannot move forward to Kris without attending to your question, I want to respect that. Okay. All right. Don't be shy then. Work on your questions for the next session, but our next part of our session here, but we're going to turn it over to Kris now for his presentation. Thank you so much, Sarah. So Kris, yes. I'm going to rig up your presentation here.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, that was great, Sarah. Thank you for that. And it's always been fun. Sarah and I first met talking about social procurement and working in creating something together, multi-level government as well, which is is in place, and I'll talk about that in a second. But and certainly you, Courtney, we go back the same kind of time frame, and I appreciate your introduction. I really do. Making procurement interesting. That's really awesome. That's a great statement. Actually, I've been very fortunate to have been part of Soul the Next Economy for the last 3 years, and it's just a phenomenal event. I look forward to it every year, and the speakers this year are tremendous to listen to. To be honest, I'd rather just talk about what they've been talking about for the last 3 days. It's just been phenomenal. But I do remember last year presenting in person at Ambrose University, and I still go on this favorite comment that was made. The very nice woman put up her hand at the end of the presentation, and she said, "I had no idea this would be interesting." And I thought, well, that's fabulous. That is absolutely a fabulous comment. So my name is Kris Ruiter. I am Chief of Stakeholder Engagement with the Office of Small Medium Enterprise. As Courtney said, it's this huge giant mouthful. Essentially, we are an outreach team. What we are designed to do is to help businesses navigate federal government procurement. So we do webinars, presentations, one-on-ones. We are essentially, I know it's a crazy concept, but we are a federal government team that's here to help. And so, if anything, if you have questions about procurement, how to get into it, how to sell to the government, how to get in the supply chain, how to leverage our data that's out there to be able to find opportunities, please reach out. I'm happy to do so and walk through that and talk about those kinds of concepts. But I've also been involved with social procurement from a Western region perspective for the last 3+ years as well. So yeah, just a quick rundown, similar to Sarah, sort of how we got started, where we were, where we are, and where we're going. So what you also notice with me is I just talk and then don't move the slide and forget which slide I'm supposed to be on. So I'm probably already a couple ahead. Yeah. So Office of Small and Medium Enterprise, that's us. So we're here to assist, inform. We are there for barriers as well. So if you do find a barrier associated with the federal procurement and you want to talk about it with someone, call me and we'll have that. I'm not the change agent on it, but I can certainly relay the information and help reduce some of the barriers that are out there. I was certainly fascinated by a news presentation this morning with regards to the ethical sourcing and supply chains and the impacts that it has around the world, and makes me think, oh, okay, well, there's something more to learn and potentially involved with at the federal level. So very, very interesting stuff. If we can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So yeah, this is just a couple of quick hit points. We are, as the federal government, as a group, one of the largest buyers. We're at anywhere, let's not count the pandemic year, but essentially $15 to $22 billion a year in goods, services, construction. What usually surprises is the third bullet, which is that small and medium enterprise actually receive close to 90% of the contracts. Now, that's not contract dollars, that's more contract volume. But what we tend to see in the news is we do jet planes and Navy ships, and we build, the Champlain Bridge in Montreal and the Gordie Howe Bridge from Windsor to Detroit, and billion-dollar bridges and major IT infrastructure. But the reality is we do a lot of other contracts. A lot of the variety is insane. I've been involved with vaccine, furniture, rockets that cause avalanches on purpose for Parks Canada, to actors, makeup artists, fence posts, paint for Department of National Defense down in Suffield. There's an incredible variety. And what's also important is that, we also don't define who we work with, right? It really, one of the biggest myths is, well, we don't buy from small businesses, or my business is too small. And really, we will work with a sole proprietor. We'll work with a partnership. A nonprofit, a social enterprise. It really doesn't matter. If you can meet the requirement, you can bid and be a part of and potentially earn contracts. If we go to the next slide, please. So from a social procurement standpoint, it really, to be honest, it really hit in 2015. So the Prime Minister writes mandate letters to all of the ministers. And for the first time in 2015, they were posted publicly, and they were again back in 2019. And we all went and read our minister's mandate letter, which had a big, bold social procurement. And of course, all of the buyers in the federal government went, huh, pardon, what? Okay. Okay, that's in our mandate letter. We have to go do that. How do we do that? So it was really fascinating, because I got involved at a Buy Social Canada event in Ottawa, and then again in Winnipeg. The Ottawa one was interesting because our minister got up there and said, we're doing this, we're going, here we go, let's do this. Every idea is good, let's move forward. And then the chief secretary for the department got up there in the next panel session and went, okay, yes, we were going to do this, but it's early, and we got a bunch of things to work with, because as you can imagine, we have layers upon layers of rules and agreements that we got to play with. So it's taken a while to get there. I ended up managing a team of buyers who were very engaged and all interested in this direction, but it all came down to the how. How do we do this? And so what it really highlighted is that we needed to network, we needed to learn, and we needed to grow. And that's essentially, how we got started, and how I got connected with folks like Courtney and David from Buy Social Canada, and a host of others that have been great resources in there. If we can go to the next slide, please. So sorry, can we go back one more? There we go, thank you. So again, social procurement and diverse supplier base was highlighted in the 2019 mandate letter. In the time that I've been in Western Region, we have had some pilots. So we have done a social enterprise and diverse supplier pilot for catering services. Unfortunately, that's a bit of a challenge right now, just due to the pandemic. We're not really, any of our departments are in that position. But what was really neat about that pilot was it was also a multi-level government pilot. So end users were the city of Calgary actually leveraged the list of suppliers that were on there. We did it for an Indigenous business reverse trade show that we did in Calgary. We leveraged that list, and we had a couple other departments. So it was all levels of government that could use it. It was created in a way to have social enterprises and diverse suppliers be able to be highlighted and basically be reached out to for these catering opportunities. We also did a pilot on cleaning services down near Suffield, just off the base. And that one we did as a social procurement. So much to Sarah's description around including social value into the evaluation, that is what we did there. And it was based on those that had barriers to employment. And it was voluntary as to what kind of what kind of proposal was put forward by the suppliers. But what was really neat was that all suppliers that bid included a social value. So they didn't have to be a social enterprise. It didn't have to be something that they already incorporated, but they chose to. So that the winner, the social value component of their bid became part of the contract. And then we moved forward from there. So that was neat to see how that could be tried and done. During the pandemic, the federal government was heavily involved with PPE procurement and had a big call out for that. And a couple of the postings that we've had on the Buy and Sell website included social value in the procurement for cloth masks and such. And so there were social value components included in that. And really it continued with network learning and growing. If we can go to the next slide, please. So where we're going, I'm really encouraged because what I have seen over the time of the last couple of years has really been around programs and policy and developing it further for our buyers to be able to use and to leverage. What I'm really encouraged by as well is additional programming around set-asides. And so we had a change back in 2017 with the trade agreements, and particularly with the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, and then allowing for more set-asides and a small and medium business set-aside. And now we are looking at leveraging the social procurement on top of that. And that's coming into place soon. I don't have a timeline, but my last conversation earlier this week was that it is nearing completion, which is very exciting because it's giving us more tools to be able to leverage social and diverse supplier opportunities. The challenges are really aligned with what Sarah said. Sarah's one of the bullets there was around local, right? Around the trade agreements around local. Well, that's true at the federal level, except local is the entire country. So we can't favor local as in entire of Canada unless we have the Canadian content policy involved. So there are times where we can do that, but there are many times that we can't. But we are seeing that we're going to have policy in which we are going to be able to leverage a social value in on top of it anyway. And so it won't necessarily be local, but it will include social value globally, which is really, really interesting. And really there's lots of opportunity. We had a great, and Courtney was involved with this, we had a great discussion. We had a co-op students do a project around social procurement and how that could be expanded within the region and grown. And what we did is we asked those that are in the social value world, those that are working with people in social programming within the city of Calgary, how do we make this more valuable? How do we create value? How do we actually get to something that means an end result that helps the programs that they're running, as well as the people that they are servicing and helping? And what we learned is that social procurement can be in anything. It's not limited to a particular industry or a particular few industries, that there are tremendous opportunities all over. And I think that's very exciting as well. And we're going to continue to network, learn, and grow, because it's just something that we have to continue to do to be able to continue to modernize our procurement efforts and offers. And so if we can go to, I think, one more slide, which is really just a card of how to reach us at the Office of Small and Medium Enterprise and be able to do business or learn from us. So either me directly or through our generic number and mailbox here. So again, Courtney, thank you so much for an opportunity to share a bit on where we're at the federal level and how we're participating and continuing wanting to participate in social procurement.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kris. That's great. I'd like to invite any questions or comments from everybody that's in the session today. So you're welcome to put them in the chat or to raise your hand. And I'll just go first, maybe while folks are formulating their questions. So I'd like both Kris and Sarah to answer this if you can. Kris, you can go first. But I'm wondering about your greatest hopes or your wildest dreams for what we might achieve in social procurement. So if you were to overcome any and all challenges associated with this work, what would social procurement look like in 5 years from now?
Wow, what would it look like? You know what, I would say that federal procurement standpoint, I think where we're going to see is just much more inclusion of it. You know, and I think there's great opportunity to that. The changes that have occurred from a technical standpoint on trade agreements and things, and the approach and the interpretation is going to really change how the number of opportunities. But if I was to dream and really see where it could end up, it's all about the end result. It's, you know, we're going to get the goods and services that we need, but it's seeing how it has actually impacted the social value, that the value of the dollar on the procurement extends beyond the good or service we're actually buying. And so what we would see is, you know, not only the direct impact on the people that it's going to help and benefit, but then the spillover, the domino effect to that is the impact on the other programs that are out there, whether it's the social programs at the municipal level or the provincial level, or the funding programs that are associated with you know, any and all supports that are out there, because there is a giant ripple effect that can happen that extends beyond the procurement. And I think that's where I'm most interested. That's my dream of seeing where it could be, is you know, fundamentally I'm going to get the good or service or construction, but how far does the ripple go? How far across the pond does the ripple go to create the impacts across every single level that it could? And I'd love to see how far down that we could get.
Very cool. Thank you. And Sarah, what about you? Your wildest dreams, if they were achieved 5 years from now?
Well, you know, Kris covered a lot of it already. And I think it's that it becomes the norm, right? That it becomes as normal as cost or quality or delivery, that social value, community value is generated on every single procurement, that it's part of the DNA of doing procurement going forward, and that we are able to measure and generate the outcomes that we've hoped for on a day-to-day regular basis, right? Without this being a special project or a special piece. And I think, you know, really it's about, you know, even, you know, bigger with the sustainability, the ethical, the resilience, all of that stuff, that just becomes part of how we do business. So yeah, so Kris kind of nailed it, but that will be just my additional piece to add to that.
Thank you. Okay, I welcome raised hands or questions in the chat. And I'll just read a question that we have here around measuring outcomes. So Sarah or Kris, how do you measure outcomes in the social procurement process? What difference is it making, and how do you measure?
I can maybe grab that one first, Courtney.
Please do.
I was just responding to someone else privately in the chat about it. So I pulled up the data collection chart that we developed. So I'm just going to open that on my own screen just so I can speak about it. So it's not straightforward. I just start with that. You know, we have been, you know, crunching our brains to think about how we can measure something that, you know, in some instances is tangible and in others it's not. And how do we do that? And we've been working with David and his team at BiSocial really to kind of, you know, go further and dig into this. What we are measuring, what we are collecting data on right now to measure the success of this program is really connected to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, which is to really reduce the barriers, include more diverse supply chains, small, micro, small, medium, social enterprises and such. So we're collecting information through the questionnaires on those pieces. So, You know, how many new suppliers did we get participating in procurement? How many of those were from the SME sector? How many of our suppliers have got any third-party certification? Do they have social procurement policies? Do they have apprenticeship programs? Are they offering work experience? Are they, or do they have a living wage policy, for example? And then out of collecting that data of the questionnaires, not only about who's bidding, but then who wins them and what is the percentage of those ones awarded from the SME sector by volume, by value. So that's kind of where we are approaching this at the city right now. But it's a slow process because procurements, you know, take time to get through. And, you know, ultimately, we're probably not going to know the true outcome until that procurement is embedded, that build is done, etc. So these things take time.
Thanks, Sarah. Kris, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think it really just depends how far along the ripples you want to go to find out the full impacts, and that gets just increasingly more complex to actually be able to figure that out. So if someone was on social assistance that then through a procurement was able to secure an as a barrier, they had a barrier to employment, got some employment, sustain that, that gainful employment to make the living wage, to then come off of that program, then and then just keeps going and going and going. And so there's incredible complexity to that. I think at the procurement level, we would look at it from, as Sarah described, it's how did the procurement impact, and what did we evaluate? So how did that measure actually come through in what we evaluated to achieve that social procurement? But if we're going to get the full picture, it's far more complex to really get to, but incredibly valuable if we could ever get there. I think the UK, through their Social Procurement Act, has been really working hard at trying to establish that and get really deep into the actual value out of it, but it's been very complex.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. And I can share that Momentum is very interested in ensuring we can capture some of the human stories associated with this policy. So, David Flood, I'm looking at your background there. I see some trucks. So, David launched his trucking company and was able to offer 2 apprenticeship opportunities. And once was a struggling business is now thriving and successful, and all of those positive outcomes that David himself has personally been able to experience, but also some of the people that he's hired and working with as well. Yeah, very cool. Okay, I'm going back to the chat to see if there's any questions written in there from folks, or if anybody wants to raise their hand. Otherwise, I'll get the hog of the microphone because I always have tons of questions for these 2. All right, so I am wondering, what do you need from students or small businesses to support this important work? So I say students and small business because I noticed in the poll that we have a lot of people from the student sector and also from small businesses. So what can students or small business owners do to help advance this work? And Kris, maybe you want to kick it off this time.
Sure. Participation, involvement, and that comes in a variety of forms, because it's participation at a, from a business perspective, it's participating in procurement, and knowing that the opportunities are there, and putting it forward, because there's an opportunity for growth and diversifying a client base for a business, and participating in procurement. Now, right now, there are not, it's not the norm to have social procurement and social enterprise in every opportunity. So it's not going, you're not going to get value for that now. Just to be completely straight, you're not going to get value for it now, but you're extremely well positioned as we evolve it. So participating and getting used to and understanding the process, and pushing and questioning why it's not included. Where's the program? Where's the set aside program? Where's the diverse supplier program? Where is, why isn't this including social procurement? This is a way of participating through the procurement process, to ask those questions, and that same same from a student perspective, you know, challenging your MPs. I mean, I knew you talked about this morning about, you know, right to the MP. Absolutely. You know, question why isn't it included? You know, why can't we have it more? I think participation is huge because that just allows more voices to encourage the movement forward, and then that, you know, helps us continue pushing the movement.
Sarah, do you want to take last minute to respond?
Sure, and I was just responding to a private message there. So I caught the beginning of Kris's response there, and that participation really rings true. It's that advocacy, it's that involvement. And I think from the student population, you are the next generation of leaders. You are the next generation of the workforce that's going to be coming out. And I think instilling the community benefit, the social value, all of those pieces as being priorities, not, you know, something that we have to think about, you know, when we decide to, but as the core value in the way that we run business, conduct ourselves, how we run governments. I think that's the key from the student perspective. And I think from the enterprises that are on the call today, the small businesses, participation for sure. And, you know, reaching out. If there are issues, let us know. Let's talk about it. Let's get this program working for everybody. What I would hate to do is get to the point that we've got a policy that doesn't work, that doesn't bring benefit. So I think it's open dialogue. Let's have a conversation. We don't have every answer, and we need that involvement and feedback from, you know, every perspective.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, so there's a saying, you know, do your best until you know how to do better. And so there's no turning back, right? We know how we can do better now with social procurement. So that's what's exciting for me about this file. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But before we wrap things up, I want to ensure that if you have any other questions or comments that you'd like to share, that you can do so in the chat, and we can try and attend to them following this session. Or you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or through other social media platforms. If you are doing some research on this topic or need to know more, I'm sure I could find the right person to connect you with. Kris was kind enough to share some contact info, as well as Sarah, the 311 info, if you are a small business trying to navigate procurement with the city. So I hope you have all the right follow-up information if you need or want to know more. And I want to thank everyone, particularly Kris and Sarah, for sharing your wisdom with us today, Joni for hosting us, and for all of you for attending. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And just FYI, we are moving back to swap card just for wrap up, and the link is in the chat. All right, I'm going to say goodbye. Awesome. We'll end, and thanks everyone. We'll see you in the next
thanks everyone.
Portal. Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thank you all. Ciao.